Well, here we are, the long awaited cutting out the wing and applications. Now I have to apologise for those who've been waiting for this. I know some have. My laptop died, the motherboard went, I had to spend £1,000 and get a new laptop, and life just overtook me. So here we are, we're ready to go. You're going to need your ruler, a 1 foot ruler. You're going to need your carbon rod, which looks very much like this, and hopefully if I twist it round, there we go. I hope you can read that. Yeah, there's the sizes. Is that upside down? I don't know, can't see. But basically I will read it out to you. The size of this carbon rod is 5mm by 3mm by 1mm. So basically it's 5mm thick, the inner part is 3mm, and the 1mm is the circumference around there. Okay, so this is a 5mm rod. You can use a 6mm if you want to, but it doesn't really matter too much. So what I've done is to prepare, oh yes, and also you're going to need your servos. Okay, it's advisable to buy a servo tester, and as you can see this cost £3. Okay, some tape. This tape is, well, it's 2 3/4 inches wide. If you like, it's 48mm wide, so 4.8 centimeters. Okay, now before I forget, somebody asked me what battery am I using. I'm using an Overlander 900 milliamp hour 11.1 volt 3S, so that means it's a 3 cell. So that is what I'm using, and there's your DIN connector there, and that's all you need. Get yourself 2 or 3 of them. You'll have a day of flying and you won't regret it. And put Velcro on the bottom. There's a bit of muck there from the flying field, that soon comes off. Get yourself some Velcro. Okay, so that's the battery I'm using, and I've been asked to identify that, so we've got that out of the way. You're going to need some epoxy resin. Now this is 5-minute epoxy resin. It comes in a 2-part of the hardener, and it does actually go off in 5 minutes if you mix it properly. So I suggest you get your surgical gloves on, which is very common at the moment. And I will be using my Dremel. It looks a bit crazy, fantastic, but it's a great tool. If you haven't got a Dremel, do not despair. I will show you the alternative ways of doing things. You're going to need a little brush because there's going to be bits of everything flying everywhere. Now, if you have a very sharp knife or a blade, if you use this, it may be advisable for you to get a candle, heat the blade up with the candle. Now you haven't got to get it red hot, you just got to get it hot, and then it enables you to cut the foam very, very easily, and you get a nice straight line and it comes out really nice. Now then, so where are we? Now you're going to need a notepad and pen for this. So go and grab your notepad and go and grab your pen, because I'm going to give you lots of different measurements. So the first thing, the biggest burning question that ever gets asked on all these sites about Lidl gliders and Facebook and all these other things is, where is the centre of gravity? The centre of gravity is here. Now I've measured this from the leading edge back is 38mm. So from there to there you measure 38mm, and that is your C of G, your centre of gravity. Very, very important you mark that. Okay, now your carbon rod in this instance needs to be 68.5 centimetres. 68.5 centimetres length of carbon rod. this bit. I've not cut that down yet. Okay, now the position of that is, if I can read my own writing, is 46 millimeters from the leading edge. Or am I telling you a lie? I'm probably telling you a lie. If I measure it now from the leading edge, it's actually 62. So it's 62 millimeters from the leading edge to where that carbon rod goes in. Okay, now your servos are here, so you measure from your center line 12 centimeters, and that goes to that edge there, and again to the other edge. Now I made a mistake marking this out. I could have got another wing and done it properly, and then you wouldn't have known any different, but I thought, no, I'll leave the mistake in, because it just gives you a little bit more confidence to say, hey, you know, if the fat guy can make a mistake, so can I. But the important thing to do when marking these things out is when you get your servo, okay, which is this one here, which I keep putting up to the camera every so often, a 9-gram servo, yeah. When you put it in, it goes that way round, like that, yeah, and the other one goes that way round, like that. Then this cable, you cut a line here and you push the cable in until both cables come to the center. Okay, so I'm going to give you some more measurements. Now, the next measurement is your ailerons. Now, between this edge here and this edge here is 56 centimeters. Okay, between that edge and that edge. So if you measure out from the center to there and one center to there, in fact I'll just re-measure that now. That is, well, actually should have 56.25, so that'll be 26. So that says 26 to me, and that one there says 26. So that's where your ailerons start. Okay, now you have to line up the edge of where the arm goes off the servo. So going in a straight line, this is where you put your control horn. Okay, now if you can get yourself from the pound shop one of these big long rulers, this is 90 centimeters, so it's just under a meter. This cost me £1. Okay, get one of these and you'll be able to put a straight line all the way along, okay, and then mark out your ailerons. So if you mark it all out before you start, you're going to get it right, and there's no guessing, making it up as you go along. And broadly speaking, I think that's about it. So from the trailing edge, we're going to measure in millimeters 43 millimeter from the trailing edge, and that one will be 43 as well. So you've got to make sure you get your center line actually bob on, and that there will be bob on, that'll be bob on, and then it's just a case of getting that into a straight line. Okay, so you're going to cut that bit out there and that bit out there, and that's where you put your control horn there and there. That's where you put your servo. So just to reiterate, the width of the servo is from the leading edge 46 millimeters from the leading edge to the edge of the servo. So where will I put it? So from the leading edge here to that edge there is 46 millimeters. That is 12 centimeters from the bottom there to the center of that line there. If you follow those guidelines, you don't have to put it there if you don't want to. You can put it where you want to, but that's how I'm doing it. Okay, and my regular one, exactly the same layout, flies beautifully. I've been flying it today, no crashes, and everybody's going, wow, really like that. So there we are. Now, before I go any further, if you recall from my last video, I bent these dihedrals up and I laid a weight on them overnight, and it was flat as a pancake. I then left this in my conservatory for a week, and guess what? The bend's back. Isn't that interesting? So without that carbon fibre rod being in to keep the dihedral flat, it's going to naturally come back. So before I actually glue the carbon fibre back in, I'm going to bend that down again. So yeah, there you go, learned something new. So here we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to get our knife, and what we're going to do is, you see, you don't want to cut too deep. So how deep will that knife go? Well, this particular knife is just the right depth. So all you got to do is just measure the depth of that servo, mark your blade so you don't go all the way through the wing, because you don't need to. Okay, and then what you do, you cut into all the lines all the way around like so, and you just follow the line, you just follow it through like that, and you go down to the depth of your blade. Okay, once you've done that, which isn't difficult, and it's easy if you heat up the blade with a candle, it's twice as easy. And I'm just going over it again just to make sure it's absolutely bob on. There you go. You can then proceed to cut that out. Now you can either use your knife or you can use your Dremel. I think on this occasion I'm going to use the knife. By the way, I've been seeing some things written on websites about using Cyno. This is Cyno safe. You don't need a special cyanide, which is basically super glue. You don't need a special super glue with this foam, it won't melt it. Okay, so if somebody tells you otherwise, they are misinforming you. You can use super glue. Glad I got that out of the way, because I was hoping that I would not forget. So as with the fuselage, let's just cut that into squares. Okay, and just go into it, and you're seeing this as it happens. So if I make a mistake, you're going to see it first. Okay, cut that into squares. Okay, then some pin nose pliers, start in the centre, grab, twist, pull, grab, twist, pull, grab, twist, pull, and you just keep going round until you've cut the whole thing out. And I'll probably fast forward this bit to save you getting bored. Now, just get your servo and see if it fits. It's got to go a bit deeper, I think. And now you'll see that now that it's partially in, why you need this line here, because that has got to go in there. Okay, and I've got to make that slightly deeper. So to save time, I'm going to use my Dremel. Okay, it's only to save time, because obviously you don't want to be watching me doing this all day. So here we go with the Dremel. Now let's see if I've adjusted this correctly or not. This is the attachment. I think this cost me about, I don't know, about £7 I think. and you've got a little router there. This is a 6mm router, and it's all put in and everything. So let's turn it on, see what happens next. So let's do the carbon rod. I'll come back to that in a minute. There you go. It's none of this is made up, and there's no studios and blonde girls swanking around. So okay, to do the carbon rod, get your knife, make sure it's a sharp knife. If you have the opportunity, get a candle, heat it up. I'm not going to heat this one up right now because I've set the Dremel to do it, but basically all you got to do is to score along. I'm not doing this in shot on my, score it along. Okay, get to the end, and you just go along like that, and you pull that out, twist, pull. You do that all the way along. Now if you're going to cheat like me, you get your Dremel out, which is now I hope at the correct depth, and you put that in and you turn it on, and you're not going to hear me, I expect. Okay, I've only gone halfway across just for now, just to speed things up, and just get your knife and just clean it up a little bit. Okay, did a nice neat job there, and this is where the hand brush comes in. Okay, get all that rubbish out of the way. So there you go, and then you get your carbon fibre rod, which I've not cut down to size yet, but you'll see that just fits straight in. It's the right depth, and it'll be flush with the surface. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish that line off, cut the carbon rod to length, okay, and then I'll show you how I dig that out. So I'll be back in just a moment. Okay. Okay, so I've just routed all this out, and now I'm going to do this at the proper depth, which is 12mm. This needs to be 12mm deep, so I'm just going to switch this on now. Hang on, just help me turn the power on. There you go. Okay, so let's do a trial fit on that, and that should go. Wow, look at that, superb. Now the next part is to bury this cable into the wing. Okay, so we just follow that line that I have drawn on, which is 12 centimeters long from the center point. Okay, so I'll just cut that in from the center point all the way along. Just go through it a couple of times. Okay, that's all you got to do. You haven't got to do anything else. So now this goes in, and then you push the cable into that slot. And sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's not so easy, but it'll go in, don't worry. Just push it down with your fingers, like so, until you get to the center. Okay, just use your thumbnail and push that in. Yep, look at that. It's almost as though I meant to do it. Okay, so it's going to look like that. Okay, and then of course you do the same to the other side. Now back to the carbon rod. Now I've just cut this to length. So I just use a normal household junior hacksaw to cut it. You don't need any special tools for that. I'll do a trial fit on that. And by Jupiter, it fits. Yeah. So all I've got to do is just take the dihedral out again, mix up my 5-minute epoxy, put the 5-minute epoxy in, pop that on top, weight it down, let it go off, and we're nearly there. So I am going to go back to the kitchen, take this dihedral out now, which you don't really need to see because I've already done that in the previous video, and then we'll crack on. Okay, bear with me, it'll all make sense in the end. Okay, don't despair, please don't despair. All right, now time for the 5-minute epoxy. I've got myself some lollipops out of my bag of bits you need, and something to mix your 5-minute epoxy in. This is a lid of a ice cream tub, which is red berry sorbet. Oh, how about that? So what you do, you get your epoxy and your wing, and you do a final check to see that the carbon rod will go in, especially after I've just straightened the wing out again. Okay, you won't need any special tools, so what we're going to do is mix up the epoxy. So a good old splurge there of the hardener with the red top on, and the resin itself. So there you go, an equal amount. Splurge, splurge, splurge. There you go, and you get your lollipop stick and you mix that together. There you go, lovely jubbly 50-50 mix. Now remember, this just takes 5 minutes, so obviously I will fast forward parts of this because otherwise you'd just be like watching glue dry. Boom, boom. Okay, there you go, mix it all in. Now we're just about ready, so we'll take the carbon rod out. That's ready, and all we've got to do is spoon it in. Okay, and I'm just going to work from the middle outwards. And part of the job of the carbon fibre is to stop that from happening, but the main purpose for the carbon fibre is that if you're flying this with ailerons, you're going to be putting high stresses on it, and this carbon rod is going to stop your wing from snapping in two. So you lay it in like so, and don't forget to put your gloves on, because it gets real sticky and it's just going to end in tears, and you'll have sticky hands for the rest of the evening. Run your finger down it, there you go, and you just keep pressing it in and pressing it in and pressing it in. So what I'm going to do is just turn you off for a minute, and I'm just going to hold that in place. All right, see you in a minute. Okay, so the epoxy has gone off. So while you've been away, I popped in the other servo just to save time. That seems to seat okay, that seems to seat okay. and of course I've popped the cable in there, so it comes out here, so eventually that will go into the fuselage, or as we like to say, the fuzz. So what's next? Well, the next thing is, besides clearing up, oh, by the way, before I go any further, it's under no circumstances do you glue these in yet. You glue these in at the very end and not before, because if you need to make an adjustment or a mistake, they're glued in and there's nothing you can do about it. So just don't glue these in, just leave them as they are for now. Okay, so this carbon fibre rod is in, the epoxy is dry, the wing is level, there's no dihedral in there. Okay, so that's what one of the jobs that this carbon fibre does, is keep that dihedral out, besides strengthening your wing, and your wing will have a high amount of stress and tension and torque on it because you're about to use ailerons. Now what I have done, and I highly stress that you do it, is mark out where your fuselage is going to go, and just to make sure that it doesn't interfere with where your ailerons are going to be. Now what I really should do is mark the other side of the wing for the ailerons, so let's just do that, and I'll grab a pencil because it's only just occurred to me. You see, it's not rehearsed. There's a pencil. So I'm going to mark that trailing edge there. Okay, like that. There you go. And obviously here in a straight line. I think we can all make a straight line over 10 millimeters. I've already done it this end, and so I can mark it on the top. Okay, so mark it on the top. And that depth will be 45 there. Yeah, okay, we'll make them both 45 then. So 45. Here we go. There you go there, 45. You can't use a set square on here because the wing is not straight, it's got no straight lines in it, basically. So you just got to get it right as best you can. And from there, centre line that says 22. Okay, let's go, let's call it 25 from the centre line. So mark the centre line there. And here. There we are. It's all live, ladies and gentlemen. We said 25, didn't we? So we're just double checking that. That one is actually bob on. This one is slightly out by about 2 millimeters, but that's all right. I'm going to cry over that. Okay, 25. So this is your only, this centre line is your only straight line you've got, so you work everything from the centre line. Okay. Now it is important to get the ailerons symmetrical, because obviously when they're working, if they're all the same length and thickness all the way through, the aircraft is going to react the way that you want it to. Otherwise it might swing more one way and swing less the other. Only by a fraction, but sometimes that fraction makes all the difference. Now this, you take your pound shop ruler. I mean, £1 for that. I mean, you know, how do they even make it for that much? That's probably a political question, which I think is probably wise not to get into. So anyway, let's just double check we got the tips at the right measurement. So that tip, from that mark to that tip, is 12 millimeters. So that one's slightly out, so I'm going to mark it there. Okay. Right. So all we have to do now is line that up like so. And I hope you can you see that? Yeah. Okay. Line that up and draw your line. Like that. So almost the whole edge, almost the whole trailing edge is your aileron. Okay, so remember, it makes it highly aerobatic. And if highly aerobatic is what you want, by Jove, that's what you're going to get. So it's this one here. Hold it down. And there we are. Okay. Now, it doesn't really matter if you've made a mistake in your marking out and you've corrected it, because you know this washes off. You can wash that off a little bit of soap and water. And also, don't forget, you have with the kit, you have these stickers that go on, so you can cover all that up. You can cover all that up. If you buy 2 or 3 of these things, well, you can do top and bottom, can't you? Now, it's best now to lay this flat for the next part, which is going to be cutting this out. Alright, now this is the part where you're thinking, oh, not sure if I want to do that, but fate favours the brave, and I'm not in this to lose. So I have a brand new sharp blade, and you have to, as best you can, keep this absolutely vertical. Okay, and it's even easier if you have a candle and heat up the blade, because it will go through the foam like a hot knife through butter, or a hot knife through foam, if you like. And I'm trying to get this as bob on as I can. And there you are. There's your aileron. So we need to cut out the other side, and we've double measured it, so it's just a carbon copy of that. I may fast forward this bit just to save time. Here we go. we go. And well, that's pretty close to where we originally marked it, is it not? That goes there. So the next thing is to make a hinge. Now what we have to do, and this is the bit where you've got to really concentrate on what you're doing, is you need to put a chamfer on that. So what I mean by that is, if I can find my pencil, we need to cut it like this. Cut it like that, about 45 degrees. The reason being is that when this moves, you'll be okay this way, no problem. But when you go this way, you're hitting a flat edge. So you've got to allow it to bend this way. So what we're going to do is cut the bottom side to allow this to go this way. It'll automatically go this way, no problem. Okay, so we have to grab our long ruler and our short ruler. Can you imagine if this was your dining table? You'd be in real trouble, I'll tell you. Let's take a measurement. We'll say 1 centimetre in from that leading edge there. So 1 centimetre in, and we'll mark that 10 millimetres if you like, and we'll just go down and mark 10 millimetres all the way down, just at certain places, and it's just so we get a straight line. So when we lay the ruler on, we know that it's absolutely bob on. Okay, there you go. And lay the long ruler on. There you go. They all line up. Yeah. Draw your line. Now, as I said before, measure twice, cut once. So you know this fits the right hand wing, if you like the starboard wing, the right hand wing. Okay, so you've got to remember this is the top. It might be worth putting an X on it or something like that just to remind yourself. So we're cutting the bottom. Okay. Now this is where a steady hand comes in and a really, really sharp blade. Now what the hell did I just do with that blade? There it is. So there we are. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to start it off to that edge. Okay. It's just to start it off. And you shouldn't really pull a blade towards you, but when you're trying to do this to a video camera, needs must, so I have to be extra specially careful. Just a regular guy. So there we go. And that's what you end up with. See that? And I just did that totally freehand, and I have no great skills, so don't be afraid to have a go. Okay, now we know this is the starboard, or if you like the right wing. You can see probably just there that little bit of curvature where the dihedral was, but don't worry about that because this will come into place. Now please allow for this to move on here. You don't want it to be absolutely flush because it'll just bind. Okay, so you just need to take maybe 1 millimeter, 2 at best, off this edge here so it doesn't bind there. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Get it flat as I can. Just follow that line there, basically. Yeah. Here we go. Can you see that? So in actual fact, you're shortening the aileron by 2 or 3 millimeters, and so what you'll end up with when that tip lines up there, you get a bit of a gap here. Now I haven't done it quite straight, so I'm going to straighten that up slightly. Okay. Lighten up the tip. Yeah, I could probably take another millimeter off there. You're not going to get everything right first time, you know that, don't you? Okay, so there you are. Now that can move freely. So I'm going to jump a little bit. Let's get rid of this paper, I think. Sticky back plastic. I've been waiting years to say that. And I'm just going to reiterate what size this is. This says 47, 48 mil, and in inches that's 1 3/4. 1 3/4 inches. So what we're going to do is we are going to basically do that. Sticky back plastic. Oh wow. Lay that on the aileron. So about, I don't know, an inch one end and half an inch another. Let's rub it down. It should stick in on. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Okay, let's hold that back. Offer it up. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? If I can find that blade, I'm just going to trim that bit of sellotape off. There you go. Starting at the tip end. Okay. And there you go. Always get a bubble. Wow, ain't life for so and so. There you go. And then we just trim off that bit there. There we go. So this is what we end up with. We end up with full movement this way and enough movement this way. Now you might say, well, you know, how much movement do you need? You're going to have to take my word for it. That, ladies and gentlemen, when you're travelling at high speed, is a great deal, and that will just spin quicker than you can think. You don't even need that much movement, but it's available should you need it. In fact, you probably need that much movement, if at all. Okay, but if you need it, you got a lot more movement. So there we have your aileron attached. You just got to make sure that it's all nicely pressed in. There's nothing on, there's nothing on the bottom there. You don't need it. You don't need it. You can if you like. Yeah. Plenty of movement there. And don't forget, it's almost the full length of the wing. So that little bit of movement, is going to give a great deal of turning. You know, it's just going real quick. So there you are. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is, I am going to do this side in a moment, but I'm going to do that off camera because I need to concentrate on it using exactly the same methods. And then what I'm going to do is put the control horns on. I'll show you how to do that, and we're nearly there. We're very nearly there. So let me do that bit and put it on just the same as the other one, and yeah, we'll be there. Okay, so I'll see you in a minute.
That's all, folks.